everyone, welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shajar and these are the headlines. Chad's President Idris Deby has died of wounds he received while commanding his army in battles against rebels in the north. On Monday, he won the sixth term in office by securing over 70% of the vote in April 11th presidential elections. Deby was expected to give a victory speech but opted instead to visit troops on the front lines. Iran has denied reports of a potential interim agreement on the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal. In an interview, Iran's top negotiator Abbas-Araghchi said any temporary agreement has not been discussed in Vienna. He said that Iran is only interested in the final removal of the oppressive sanctions. Russia has expelled 2 Bulgarian diplomats after declaring them persona non grata. The expulsion comes as a tit-for-tat move after Bulgaria expelled 2 Russian diplomats over alleged espionage last month. The United States has asked its citizens to avoid traveling to India over coronavirus concerns. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says even fully vaccinated travelers may be at risk. This comes as India reported its highest daily deaths so far after more than 1,700 people lost their lives overnight. Pakistan has registered over 5,400 cases and 137 deaths overnight, with the toll crossing 16,000. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 141 million people. And in football, Leeds United have held Liverpool to a 1-1 draw at home in their Premier League face-off. A late header from Leeds defender Diego Llorente denied the Reds a place in the top 4. The draw leaves Liverpool in 6th place with 53 points, one behind 5th place Chelsea. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Chad's President Idris Deby has died of wounds he received while commanding his army in battles against rebels in the north. Deby won the 6th term in office on Monday by securing over 79% of the vote in the April 11th presidential election. He was expected to give a victory speech but opted instead to visit troops on the front lines. The government and parliament have been dissolved. A military council headed by Deby's son will now govern for the next 18 months. Iran has denied reports of a potential interim agreement on the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal. In an interview, Iran's top negotiator Abbas-Araghchi said no temporary agreement has been discussed in Vienna. He said that Iran is only interested in the final removal of the oppressive sanctions. Araghchi said that Iran will not rush to reach an agreement. Earlier, Iranian officials said an outline for the interim deal had been discussed. Meanwhile, Tehran and UN's nuclear watchdog have started talks over the issues of uranium traces found at undeclared locations in Iran. In a statement, the agency said the IAEA and Iran experts are engaging in a process aimed at clarifying outstanding safeguard issues. The Arab coalition in Yemen says it has downed an explosive laden Houthi drone over southern Saudi Arabia. In a statement, Saudi state media said the drone was fired towards Khamis Mushahid. Meanwhile, the rebels claim they attacked Abha International Airport, which is near Khamis Mushahid. A spokesperson for the Yemeni rebels said the drone hit an important military site. The Houthis have kept up regular cross-border attacks on Saudi Arabia and a ground offensive in Yemen's Marib region. This comes at a time when the U.S. and the United Nations are pushing for a ceasefire deal. The Taliban claim they have killed 14 policemen in an attack in Afghanistan's northeastern Badakhshan province. Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said they targeted 2 checkposts in Zibak district. Russia has expelled 2 Bulgarian diplomats after declaring them persona non grata. The expulsion comes as a tit-for-tat move after Bulgaria expelled 2 Russian diplomats over alleged espionage last month. Moscow has seen its relations with Sofia deteriorate after a series of spy scandals in recent years. The latest action comes as European nations accuse Moscow of stepping up increasingly aggressive espionage tactics. In addition to Bulgaria, Austria and the Netherlands, along with Norway and Sweden, have recently expelled Russian diplomats. Relations between the European Union and Russia have also soured over the jailing of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. But Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says Russia is not to blame for the spike in tensions. U.S. Ambassador to Russia says he will fly back this week for consultations about the state of bilateral relations. In a statement, John Sullivan said it is important to speak directly with Biden administration officials. Sullivan added he will return to Moscow before any meeting between the U.S. and Russian presidents. Moscow recalled its ambassador to Washington last month after President Joe Biden called Vladimir Putin a killer. Despite the dire state of relations, Russia has not ruled out Biden's proposal for a summit between the 2 leaders in Europe. The Russian military says it has killed about 200 militants in an airstrike in eastern Syria. The head of the Russian military's Reconciliation Center in Syria says warplanes hit 2 hideouts in the northeast of Palmyra. In a statement, Rear Admiral Alexander Karpov said the raid destroyed 24 vehicles and about 500 kilograms of ammunition. Karpov said according to the intelligence data, militants established a camouflaged base to train combat groups. The official said terrorists are being trained at these camps in territories that are not controlled by the Syrian authorities. He said the armed groups are plotting attacks on government institutions in big cities ahead of a presidential election in Syria. Israeli forces have once again demolished a Palestinian Bedouin village in the southern Negev region. Defense of AL-ARAQIB committee's members say the village has been demolished for the 186th time. Member Al-Aziz Al-Thuri said villagers intend to rebuild their houses and other structures as soon as possible. Homes in Al-ARAQIB are inhabited by 22 Palestinian families and are built of wood and plastic. The village was first destroyed in 2010 and rebuilt after every demolition ever since then. Israeli authorities claim the site where it is located falls under state land. In Israel, Likud's party faction chief says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on his way to the opposition. This comes after Netanyahu lost an important vote over who gets to join the parliamentary agreements in committee.
Miki Zohar said Netanyahu's party now realizes that it will not be forming a government. The Arrangements Committee controls the legislative agenda in the absence of a new government. A motion floated by Likud was rejected in a close vote, while a rival, Yair Lapid, managed to pass his proposal. With Lapid's proposal, the committee has 33 members of Knesset, 16 from the bloc that wants to oust Netanyahu and 14 pro-Prime Minister. In a tweet, Lapid said Netanyahu's failure is another small step on the way to an Israeli unity government. President Reuven Rivlin has tasked Netanyahu with forming a government, as he had the most backing from other MPs. The Prime Minister has another 15 days to complete the job, or Rivlin can look at other options.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations has called a summit on Saturday in Jakarta to discuss the situation in Myanmar. This comes as the European Union imposed its toughest sanctions yet on the military that seized power in February. 738 people have been killed in the military crackdown on anti-coup protesters since then. The 10-member bloc has been trying to find a way to guide Myanmar out of a bloody turmoil. It remains unclear how many leaders will attend the summit in person, but a Thai official says Myanmar's military chief will visit Jakarta on the 24th of April. Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for a rejection of hegemonic power structures in global governance. This comes amid rising tensions with Washington over a wide range of issues, including human rights. Speaking at the annual Boao Forum of Asia, Xi criticized the unilateralism of the countries. He said international affairs should be handled by everyone through consultation. The president criticized efforts by some countries to build barriers and said the world wants justice. An implicit rejection of U.S. dominance, Xi said governments should not impose rules on others. It's now time for a short break. Welcome back. The United States has asked its citizens to avoid traveling to India over coronavirus concerns. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says even fully vaccinated travelers may be at risk. This comes as India reported its highest daily death so far, with more than 1,700 people lost their lives overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 141 million people. More in this report.
More than a year after the coronavirus pandemic began, the average number of infections reported each day is now higher than it has ever been. Experts believe the major reason behind this is India's latest wave, as the country now accounts for about 1 in 3 of all new cases. New Delhi has announced to allow all citizens aged over 18 to get vaccinated from May 1st. But this measure could further strain supplies in parts of the world reliant on Indian-made vaccines for their campaigns. Meanwhile, as a 6-day lockdown went into effect in New Delhi, thousands of migrants fled, fueling fears they could spread the virus to their rural hometowns.
I am leaving because a lockdown has been imposed. Nobody helps us in the lockdown, not the government and definitely not the rented house owner. But we will have to pay everyone. We are far from home and we are here to work hard and earn for our family back home. In this situation, we will end up doing the opposite. We have to go home. Last time when I stayed here, I spent all my savings in 3 months. I had thought that this time I won't stay. This time, if the lockdown happens, I will go home.
Greece has suspended its planned rollout of Johnson & Johnson's single-dose vaccine, pending review by the European Medicines Agency. Climate activist Greta Thunberg has urged governments, vaccine developers, and the world to step up their game to fight inequity after the richest countries bought up most doses and those in poorer nations have gone without. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has warned about an unprecedented spike in the number of deaths.
Deaths rose for the 5th straight week, and more than 3 million deaths have now been reported to WHO. It took 9 months to reach 1 million deaths, 4 months to reach 2 million, and 3 months to reach 3 million deaths.
The U.S. says it will issue specific warnings not to visit roughly 80% of the world's countries due to the virus risks. In the Middle East, Iranians have been criticizing poor restrictive measures as cases surge to new highs. Meanwhile, a New Zealand airport worker has tested positive for COVID-19 just today after the country opened a quarantine-free travel bubble with Australia.
In Pakistan, 137 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has now risen to 16,453. They say more than 5,400 people have tested positive for the virus overnight. Pakistan has recorded more than 767,000 cases so far. The ministry says more than 667,000 people have recovered from the virus, whereas the number of active cases has crossed 83,000. The ministry said nearly 4,500 patients are in critical condition across the country, and they have reported a positivity ratio of 8%. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has arrived in Iran after completing a 3-day official visit to the United Arab Emirates. In a video statement before his departure from Dubai, Qureshi said he will discuss the regional situation with the Iranian leadership. He said the talks will also focus on promoting bilateral cooperation. The two sides will also discuss the latest developments in the Afghan peace process and the Kashmir dispute. Earlier in a meeting in Abu Dhabi, Qureshi apprised the UAE Minister of State about India's human rights violations in Kashmir. Azerbaijan has praised Pakistan for arranging naval peace exercises. Azeri Ambassador Ali Alizada called on Naval Chief Admiral Mohammad Amjad Khan Niazi in Islamabad. Alizada lauded Pakistan for gathering navies around the world, one form for collaborative maritime security. Azeri Ambassador and Admiral Niazi discussed matters of mutual interests. The two mulled over bilateral defense cooperation and regional security. Minneapolis and other U.S. cities are bracing for protests as the jury deliberates on the verdict in the George Floyd murder case. This follows 3 weeks of testimonies in the trial of the former police officer Derek Chauvin.
In their closing arguments, the prosecution told jurors that Derek Chauvin is responsible for Floyd's murder, but the defender argued that their client correctly followed police training, calling him a reasonable officer. The jury is considering testimony from 45 witnesses, including doctors, use of force experts, and police officers. The court has been shielded by barbed wire, high barriers, and armed soldiers from the National Guard. Citing civil unrest threats, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has declared a preemptive state of emergency in the Minneapolis metropolitan area.
This is our moment, Minnesota, to draw around our common humanity. The jury will decide that fate. I don't know what will come back. But what I do know is that we're going to be shaped by the response, both in the coming days and in the months and years to come. So that commitment to protect your right to protest, we'll continue to do it and do even better. We will protect your life and property, and we will do so within the limits of the law.
In Argentina, conservationists have successfully reintroduced a jaguar family into the Ibra National Park. It is part of the efforts to save the America's largest feline species. The Brazilian-born mother, Urana, and her 2 cubs are the second jaguar family to be rewilded in the area. So far, 6 jaguars in total have been reintroduced to the Iberia National Park. Conservationists say their return will help preserve the park's ecosystem. The species had been driven to extinction in this part of Argentina some 70 years ago. Officials report some 200 to 300 jaguars remain in country. NASA's miniature robot helicopter has made history with a successful flight on Mars. The U.S. Space Agency says this was the first powered control flight by an aircraft over the surface of another planet. The Ingenuity helicopter hovered for 39 seconds before successfully landing on the red planet. In debut final, the flight was documented in full-color video by cameras aboard the science rover vehicle Perseverance. The rover carried out the helicopter to the red planet 2 months ago. Officials have hailed the flight of the 1.8-kilogram rotocraft as an achievement. They said that it would pave the way for a new mode of aerial explorations in space. In Belgium, an artist has been walking around the capital, Brussels, wearing a portable greenhouse over his head. He says the contraption enables him to get fresh air while protecting him from the coronavirus. Details in this report.
Who does not like being around lush green plants? But what if you could take them anywhere with you? Belgian artist and social worker Alain Verschuren has been wandering around Brussels with a portable oasis. A mini greenhouse which rests on his shoulders, protecting him in a bubble of air purified by the aromatic plants inside. The 61-year-old artist developed the idea 15 years ago after being inspired by the oasis in Tunisia where he used to work. Now, as social distancing and face coverings have been made mandatory amid the ongoing pandemic, his invention has gained a new lease of life.
When I first created these portable oases, It was about creating a bubble in which I could lock myself away, to cut myself off a world if I found it too dull, too noisy, or smelly. With plants, at least I have pleasant smells. As time went by, I noticed that people were coming up to me and talking to me. This isolation became much more a way of connecting with others.
Vashuan says he has asthma and finds breathing within the contraption more comfortable than wearing a face mask. Onlookers have expressed mixed reactions of amusement and confusion after seeing him encased in a pod of thyme, rosemary, and lavender plants.
It means maybe we should take care of the environment more. Like, it's very pretty to see plants everywhere. I feel like Belgium's missing a lot of that, so it'd be nice to see people with plants on their heads more often. That'd be cool.
Vashuran says he aims to encourage people to take better care of the environment and to reduce the need to protect themselves from air and noise pollution.
As vaccination efforts are accelerated worldwide, in Hungary, a confectionery shop has launched a range of COVID-19 jab-themed desserts for its customers. More in this report.
In Hungary, which is one of the worst-hit countries in the European Union by the pandemic, a local cake shop has a unique take on vaccines. The pastry shop has introduced sweet shots as a light-hearted antidote to angst over the different types of vaccines.
It was important for us to do lots so we can show that here people have a choice. There is no registration, there are no side effects. Anyone can try these, as the only possible side effect would be a little permanent smile on the face and good mood.
The delicacies are filled with jellies in different colors and flavors. The sign of our mousse is sweet and sour. AstraZeneca is flavored with lemon.
We as a cake shop do not want to make a campaign for or against. We just want to bring some cheerfulness into our everyday lives.
The owner, Katalin Banco, says she does not want to get involved in the politics of vaccination. Rather, her cake shop serves up an antidote to anxiety.
European stocks have declined, with global markets all showing lackluster sentiment and tumbling tobacco stocks. Italy's FTSE MIB and the CAC 40 in Paris led the losses, falling nearly 1%. London's FTSE and the Pan-European Stock 600 have also slid more than 0.5%. Frankfurt's DAX has also shed marginally. Earlier, Asian stocks traded mixed after an overnight sell-off at Wall Street. And in football, Leeds United have held Liverpool to a 1-1 draw at home in their Premier League face-off. The draw leaves Liverpool in 6th place with 53 points, one behind 5th place Chelsea. Liverpool dominated the first half as Leeds missed several chances of scoring. Sadio Mane fired the Reds ahead in the 31st minute, netting the ball from 15 meters out. This was Mane's first Premier League goal after a run of 10 games. However, a late header from Leeds defender Diego Llorente denied the Reds a place in the top 4. They remain in the 10th place with 46 points. The UK says it will do whatever it takes to prevent a breakaway European Super League with 6 leading English clubs. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said ministers would be working to make sure the league did not go ahead as proposed. More in this report.
The news of a new breakaway league has created an overwhelmingly angry reaction across Europe. 6 English clubs alongside the Spanish trio, Real Madrid, Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, and 3 Italian clubs have agreed to join the new ESL. Manchester United fans outside the club's Old Trafford Stadium were not happy with the plan.
I think this is one of the saddest days in football history. I think it's one of the saddest days in United's history. I was saying this to my friend the other day. Football is one of the unique businesses where you can keep screwing and screwing over the consumers, the customers, the fans, and you don't just lose customers, you'll still carry on gaining customers because there's so much passion and love for it. And this is a thing that these foreign owners, they don't understand. They have no connection to these clubs and they're making decisions with a club they don't own.
Spanish giant Barcelona's fans were also not willing to opt for a new format. In China's capital, Beijing, die-hard Barca fan Yang Ji said she was shocked at the announcement.
I'm not so sure about it. If they played some exhibition matches during some not so important periods of the years for soccer, then I would be willing to watch some fierce contest between clubs. But if it affects their own national leagues, that is if it affects the current traditional competitions including the Champions League, then I'm not really in favor at all.
The UEFA says clubs and players joining the breakaway league could be banned from all of its competitions and the World Cup. The 14 Premier League clubs not signed up to the ESL will meet later to assess the proposals and consider a response.
In cricket, Pakistan have begun training for the upcoming T20 series against Zimbabwe at the Harare Sports Club. The two will play 3 T20 internationals followed by 2 match test series. Green shirts returned to the nets after all squad members tested negative for the coronavirus. The two teams will face off on the 21st of April. The second game will be played on the 23rd, while the third on the 25th of April. The first test match will begin on the 29th of April. Pakistan are charged up after winning the ODI series against South Africa 2-1 and T20 series 3-1. In National Basketball Association, Russell Westbrook's triple-double helped Washington Wizards beat Oklahoma City Thunder 119-107 at home. This marks the 5th consecutive win for the Wizards, while the 11th straight defeat for the Thunder. Westbrook recorded 13 points, 11 rebounds, and 17 assists for his 26th triple-double of the season. Bradley Beal also contributed 30 points for the Wizards. Meanwhile, Denver Nuggets nearly edged the Memphis Grizzlies 139-137 points. Nikola Jokic scored 47 points for the Nuggets, followed by Will Barton adding 28. In other fixtures, Utah Jazz outperformed Los Angeles Lakers 111-97, while the Chicago Bulls downed shorthanded Boston Celtics 102-96. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.